Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Safari Mack Explores North America. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, I certainly do hope you all enjoyed my special surprise video of helping celebrate Jane Goodall's 90th birthday this week. If you haven't, I released the video on Wednesday this week, and so I invite you to go check that video out and then come back and join me for part 2 of The Wolf. But if you have already, very good. Well, we're back in Yellowstone, continuing to celebrate springtime as we continue running with the wolf pack, or the pack of Canis lupus. So, if you're ready, let's begin. Let's continue our journey. But first, as always, if you love nature, or if you have friends that love nature and animals, invite them to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as check out my Facebook page for special content on conservation projects, as well as tips for you to practice in your home. And if there's an animal that you would like me to do in the future, or if you have questions about animals that I've covered so far, or animals in general, send me an email, which you'll find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, let's start off with part 2 with the wild things. Now, I bet you've heard of the term lone wolf, right? That's generally like someone who goes off by themselves and doesn't really follow anyone's rules, kind of a loner. Wolves, as I've mentioned previously in part 1 last week, wolves are social animals. They need other members they need a pack to survive. So there's 3 reasons though why wolves might be alone. Now first of all, don't worry, it's just temporary, hopefully. But there are 3 reasons as to why this wolf is by itself. 1, either it's been kicked out by its alpha, or 2, it's looking to breed and realizing that it has siblings, goes off to find a different pack so as to increase his or her chances of breeding. Or 3, and this is often a sad situation, but it can happen sometimes, when humans kill the alpha male or female, then sadly the leadership of a pack really does fall apart, and as a result, the pack can officially dissolve. Now here's another wild thing. Now, people often wonder, what time of the year do wolves have a more successful time hunting? Is it the winter or the summer? At first, I used to believe that it was the summertime, but truthfully, it's actually the winter. Biologists have studying wolves in either Yellowstone or anywhere in America or anywhere that has a snowy climate. Wolves seem to have an easier time hunting in the winter because their prey animals, which of course, as I mentioned last week, mostly in the park, it's bison or elk. They're having a harder time running through all that deep drifts of snow than they are on the open grounds during the summer. So here it makes a little bit more sense that have an easier time hunting for food during the winter. Now, another well-known fact is wolves howl, but each howl is said to be unique. Each wolf has their own kind of howl that helps them recognize each other, help recognize where they are in different different distances. So, from far away to nearby, wolves howl as a way of communication. Finally, in history, wolves, in terms of interactions with humans, while there have been some attacks, there's actually been very, very few documented cases or wolf attacks in where a human was fatally killed, or at least reported with serious injury. Unfortunately, that didn't really hundreds of years ago. That really didn't seem to stop our human ancestors. So now we're about to get into a little bit of the sad part, as well as the story of wolves in Yellowstone National Park. Now, first of all, before colonization of North America, wolves in Europe and different parts of the world viewed these creatures as evil and mischievous and highly untrustworthy. So these animals truly were unfairly persecuted and brought to extinction in certain parts of the world. Like the United Kingdom and Ireland, wolves are completely gone. You will never see a wild wolf running the United Kingdom ever again. And at one point, it almost seemed like it was going to become that way with the United States, at least with the lower 48, which I'm excluding both Alaska and Hawaii. And here's what happened. So back in the 1800s, these big wolves were found throughout Yellowstone National Park, but they were they were viewed as complete vermin, as ranchers and settlers were fearful that these creatures were just going to kill off all their livestock or their children, or worse, themselves. So these animals were hunted a lot until finally, around the 1800s, by the early 1900s, they were gone altogether. And at first it seemed to be great. Like I said, at first it seemed to be. Because unfortunately, we didn't realize that we actually were doing so much more damage by removing a keystone species or a real important apex predator. Without wolves, the landscape changed, different animal populations grew much more immense, and it caused a lot of problems. Really, a lot of problems. But now, let's go to the next best part of their story. Reintroduction. This is 1966, where the Endangered Species Preservation Act was officially created and would serve as the precursor to the famous Endangered Species List of 1973. Wolves were among some of the very first animals to be put on this list. Now, skip ahead to 1995. When 31 wolves that were relocated from Canada's Jasper Park were brought to Yellowstone as a reintroduction to bring wolves back and help get the park under control. At first, this was met with much criticism by many ranchers nearby, as they were certain that these animals were going to go right out of the park borders and start killing their livestock. They were wrong. Instead, the wolves began to really retransform the landscape, and this time for the greater good. Now, there are so many things of what I could list of how wolves made a really positive impact on Yellowstone, but I don't think I really have the time to be able to say it. So instead, I'd like to invite you, and you'll find this video link down in the description below along with my email address. I invite you to check out this video by Sustainable Human, How Wolves Changed the Rivers. Believe me, you want to watch this. It is an incredibly amazing story of how these animals really changed Yellowstone so much for the greater good. Now, today, there are many wolf packs. There are a good number of wolves in the park, but today, in all throughout the rest of the country, they're facing big problems once more. 4 years ago, wolves were stripped of their protections from the endangered species list, and they were being, once again, just like over 100 years ago, they were being persecuted. Now I know hunting does bring populations under control, or like some hunting is okay because it keeps an ecosystem healthy, but there is such a thing as being over excessive. In Wisconsin's very first wolf hunting season, in the course of just 2 days, 20% of the state's wolf population wiped out, or at least 218 wolves were killed. 218 in the course of just 2 days. So, once again, it seems like these wolves are heading right back to a future where they are constantly being persecuted and continuously being misunderstood. But ladies and gentlemen, this is really where you, yes, all of you out there watching this video, you have the power to demand change. Demand it for the greater good. Pressure our country, pressure our leaders, pressure the big government officials to put these animals back on the endangered species list so that they can have protections for the next 100 years and for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this week and last week with the wolf. Be sure to join me next week as we uncover the lives of Yellowstone's badgers. But until then, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there.